on the Islamic State of Iran. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get to the moment. It is Wednesday, and we're looking at about 9:07 a.m. on this day, and we're having nice looking weather actually after a good amount of rain yesterday and into last night. We're looking at some sunshine this morning. Really nice summer day, and hope you get a good start and get out there and enjoy it. And even warmer tomorrow, J-Dog. Hey, good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, all of northern New England or New England, and of course, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the pulse of an H. I know we went with this poll question for X this morning, J-Dog. We'll have results for you from yesterday on the pulse of an H. And J-Dog is loving the World Cup soccer more than me. He's loving it more than me. So he wanted the question, and I acquiesced because I think it's great. France versus Morocco, Boston Stadium, a.k.a. Gillette Foxborough. Is it tomorrow, J-Dog?
4 p.m.
Are you going? We just want to know if you're actually going from New Hampshire, Maine, or our markets here in New England. Are you going to the game, yes or no? I'm sure it will be sold out. France is one of the hot teams, as is Morocco. So that's the question. But I really wanted to ask J-Dog before we give results from yesterday, will Graham Plattner drop out of the U.S. Senate race in Maine? Because there is doubt whether or not he's going to drop out, even though he is trying to stay alive, politically speaking. J-Dog, results.
Folks on X say otherwise. 93.8% saying yes, 6.3% saying no.
What was our question? The same? Yesterday? What was our question yesterday? The Plattner?
Will Graham Plattner suspend his campaign for U.S. Senate in Maine by next week?
And most people said yes?
Yep. 93.8% saying yes. 6.3% saying no.
Well, I got news for you. I talked to, if you've been a listener of the show for years or a long time, you know that I have relatives in Maine. I was talking to a few of them this morning on the brother-in-law and sister-in-law side of things. And what they expressed to me this morning, and I'm going to be totally candid, my brother-in-laws and most of my sister-in-laws, are not overtly political. I mean, they're political and they know what's going on, both locally and worldwide. And they're not doesn't really float their boat, if you know what I mean. And they said that the thing that amazes them after really 2 days of this story now festering, or a day and a half of the Graham Plattner implosion, is how many people up in Maine that they see quietly and respectfully out and about still supporting Plattner, still liking Plattner. Like, the support for this guy is like, they don't get it, given the allegations. They don't understand it, nor do I. And the other one is they're not so sure in Maine. You might not be hearing this in the media. They're not so sure in Maine if Plattner is actually going to drop out of this thing. That's what they're hearing from Mainers. They're not sure. The Maine Democrat Party is supposedly talking to Plattner about what's the process of picking a successor, because he has to formally, as we heard yesterday from Steve Robinson, he has to formally submit a resignation notification letter, email, what have you, from him, the primary U.S. Senate Democrat winner, to the Secretary of State of Maine, saying he is, dropping out or suspending or ending his race for the Senate. Then the way Maine is, and I don't think New Hampshire is the same way, if something like this happened with the Republican or Democrat side, the state of Maine, the Maine Democrat Party then can go through a process to select a successor to Plattner. And there are reports that he's working with the state of Maine party to do that process. They're asking what is involved, and that has the appearances that he's going to move to drop out. But there are people in Maine that I spoke with this morning who've lived there. They've grown up there. They know the state better than anyone that we're going to talk with this morning, unless you're listening in Maine. And many of you are, because we have additional signals up into Maine, including our 98.7 FM HD2, 98.1 FM, and 1270 AM, and so forth. And they are not so sure that this guy's unpredictable. He feels he's part of a movement, and and the anti-Trump sentiment with his supporters is so strong, that the movement may be bigger than his infidelities and flaws, redemption, therapy, please forgive me, but he might stay in and fight. And as one of our analysts pointed out yesterday, That might go well in the primary, which he just won by nearly 70% in Maine. And Governor Janet Mills, the outgoing governor, had suspended her campaign and barely got 19%. So Plattner has got these activists in his camp for sure. And I don't even think the most recent, seething allegation or allegations plural deters that. I told you, I shared on the show the day of the primary win there in Maine. I apologize, in Maine. I had said in some out-of-state other media interviews that day that Plattner, the same day of the primary, could have gone out and robbed two banks in Thomaston or Lewiston or Portland and been arrested after lunch and a mugshot picture taken and processed, and they still would vote for him. They'd say, they're making that up. He didn't rob the banks. But there is a feeling they're wondering if he's actually going to drop out. Will he stay in and fight? Because he's this, I think he believes he's the victim. And I believe me, I don't understand it. I said to one of my relatives in Maine, I don't understand the psyche of someone who spends half their life talking about the accuser and believing the accuser and fighting, especially his female supporters, women I'm talking about, and then not condemn this guy for what these allegations are, to kind of overlook them. So I don't understand it. I don't, but that's what's going on. The other big story, of course, is President Trump in Turkey. You heard in the beginning of our show, blasting the Islamic State, saying you can't trust them. They're cheaters. They're cheats. They're sick. This ceasefire is a waste of time after the latest skirmish with the Strait of Hormuz. I guess the U.S. hit about 80 targets, and, things may be quieted down right now today, but where does it go? Some people saying this was inevitable. You couldn't trust them anyway. Why do we think we could trust a terrorist regime on any negotiations, whether it's the verified nuclear uranium enrichment or keeping the Strait of Hormuz completely open and free? So I don't know where it goes from here. President saying in Turkey, we're going to hear from John Decker at some point. He sent me a message here. The president's saying that his negotiators are free to negotiate, but this thing's over. It's a waste of time. So I don't know where it goes. Big story. Not shocked, not surprised, but we'll see where it goes. A couple of the other stories happening this morning as we get going. I don't know if you've heard down in Boston, and a lot of people for their medical care, as good as our hospitals in the Granite State may be, Boston's always had this reputation of the best medical care, some of the best medical care in the world. Is anyone paying attention down there? What's happening? The Brigham and Women's Hospital, and so the largest nursing strike in Massachusetts history is about to take place, or starting down there. The largest nursing strike. And, what's interesting is I do recall last October when I had one of those unexpected wind up in the emergency room and need a little, surgery on something you didn't even know you had wrong. I always remember every time you're in the hospital, you're reminded of how precious and important nurses are, because they're the ones who interact with you, the patient, more than anyone else, the nurse or nurses, or the PAs, the physician assistants, versus the doctors. And I remember the nurses, they were so nice and professional and pleasant. I'd get to talk to them a little bit. I was in there a few days, more than I expected. Surgeries always takes a day or two. And they were telling me that a lot of them are under these floating contracts, that the big hospitals, to save money, will not hire full-time nurses with the benefits. They'll do these agency hires where nurses will work for one hospital for 3 months, and then they're working over here under contract, or not, they're hired, kind of floating nurses situation. And they've been doing that in Boston. But now the Brigham and Women's, the largest nursing strike in Massachusetts history, and Massachusetts prides itself on their expert medical health care. And, it's hard not to have some empathy and respect for the nurses. I mean, you look at New Hampshire, these stories you see from our community colleges providing great degrees on healthcare, or University of New Hampshire, Durham, I heard their nursing demand and program is sold out. So the demand for nursing and healthcare is huge. And it's frontline quality of life care. I mean, your nurses are your front line of care, and they're critical. And they're in Boston, certainly, with this lack of affordable anything. They're obviously, not making enough, not making enough to even kind of afford a lifestyle, if you will. They're saying that the executive leadership is getting all these bonuses and they're getting screwed over. So the largest nursing strike in Boston or Massachusetts history is underway. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Come back. Dean Spiliota, Southern New Hampshire University. What is going on? Is the ceasefire? Is it a waste of time? Is it over? Back on the Pulse of an Age in a moment.
It's more than on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right. I was going to begin with the ceasefire. The negotiations are a waste of time. They're cheats. They're sick people. The president saying in Turkey at the NATO summit of the Islamic State. But before we get to international stuff, Dean Spiliota, Southern New Hampshire University, retired political science professor, one of our political analysts and all-stars. Good morning, Mr. Dean.
Hey, good morning, Jack.
You know, you are a pretty astute person, because I just realized after your distinguished academic career of 4 universities or colleges right here, including Dartmouth, because of your name, Dean. Even when you retire, you have academic distinction because I can say Dean.
Yeah, I have lots of stories. Another time I can tell you about some of the mix-ups, things that were sent to me or emailed to me at various universities because they thought I was a dean. And it's often somebody with a grievance. So I got some pretty entertaining emails and letters over the years from people who had a few things to say, thinking I was the dean in charge.
All right. Hey, by the way, we are streaming. I meant to mention this on YouTube at the Pulse of an H if you want to check it. But Dean, I want to start with something a little more. It's not fun because it's not funny, but it is rather dramatic, politically speaking.
Sure.
So you and I talked yesterday about this Graham Plattner implosion, this story, this bombshell. It's a national story given the balance of power in the Senate. That's why national Democrats jumped on the Plattner bandwagon when he won the primary handily. Now the allegations and more, and what a mess. But I was thinking, Dean, because we don't know, there are reports of Plattner's. People are talking to the Maine State Democrat Party about the process of picking a successor if he drops out. Dean, the hypothetical I want to ask is it's not really that speculative. It could happen because I talked to relatives in Maine today and they think it's going to happen. If Plattner digs in and does not drop out of this race, even if the money spigots nationally aren't there, if he believes in his mind that he's the victim, that all this is false, that he's going to persevere no matter what because the cause is greater, the ends justify the means, and he doesn't resign, he's the nominee, let's just say this, and it's going forward, even if he's trailing in the polls, what do the Democrats who yesterday kind of jumped ship, including took Bernie Sanders a day or two, what do they do now if he hangs in there and fights? Because his supporters love him. I mean, the people that voted for him in the primary, I talked to my relatives in Maine this morning before the show, they still love him. They don't care about the allegations. They like Graham. If he hangs in there and fights, what do the Democrats do who've pulled their, that he should step aside? Do they ignore it or do they come back and say, well, I guess he might have a chance here? What happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Jack. And I think the fact that he hasn't dropped out already suggests that something is up, whether it's the Plattner campaign trying to get some kind of leverage on who they view as a person who would be taking over a movement that they built. So he may be trying to get some leverage on that with the party in Maine. Or, as you said, he could, in theory, make a case that, well, this is just, institutional elites in the Democratic Party trying to kick me out because they think we're gonna take over the Democratic Party going forward, and that will threaten their livelihoods. He could certainly make that argument. I don't know how that will play in a general election, and I'm not familiar enough with Maine's party rules on the Democratic side, whether they could. But I guess even if they were to put somebody else up, I mean, they can't kick him off the ballot, I don't think. And if they were to put somebody else up in addition, that would just split the vote. So, I mean, this is a really interesting pickle that they're in.
Well, I agree with you. It doesn't bode well for him in the general because I think independents are going to come around and say, you know what? No, we're going to stick with Collins because we know who she is. But I got to tell you, that argument you just posed holds together. He takes on the Democrat elites. They're the ones that are after him because he's a threat, and he keeps fighting. And
go ahead.
No, I was just say I don't think they can put anyone else in if he doesn't, he doesn't resign.
Well, and interestingly, I saw on social media this morning, I thought a very astute observation. I wish I could give the person credit. I'll have to go look back and see who said it. But the person said that the reason why he's not dropping out is because this is not really about winning a specific race. This is a battle for control of the Democratic Party longer term.
Yeah. Well, you look at these, socialists, whatever they call the Democrat Socialists of America, that have done well, including those New York blue districts, yes, but they unseated liberal incumbent Democrats who were well respected, and they were liberal, and the far left said that wasn't good enough, that we need to be, this movement is bigger, and there is a fight for the heart and soul of the Democrat Party, obviously, that's deeper than people realize. And if this crystallizes in Maine, oh my goodness. Dean, let's switch back to foreign policy.
Sure.
President says from Turkey, hey, our negotiators can continue, but this is a waste of time. Here we go. I mean, I'm not shocked, but this could do what? I mean, where's this go from here?
Yeah, I mean, this is I think the fear that a lot of people had, that Iran has a long history of being good at kind of knowing how to give just enough to kind of keep things where they wanted, and then kind of drawing back a little bit. President Trump was eager to kind of get this off of the front pages once oil and gas started to come down. I saw that the oil has already ticked up a little bit just as in response to what happened.
Right.
If it goes up a lot more, that could change Trump's behavior. But it really feels like we're in this we're just kind of stuck. I'm not going to say it's a quagmire, but it feels like we're just stuck in that. I could foresee this kind of low-level name calling and tit for tat and a little bombing here, a little speedboat activity there, and this could just go on for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, I don't think a quagmire is a bad way to put it. I've been worried about this because I really think the president, I'm not saying he was misled or urged to do something, but I think the picture on paper in the situation room or on the wall was we could bomb the Ayatollah, bomb Tehran, bomb them hard, hit them hard, and they'd fold easy, and we could basically dismantle the Islamic threat in Iran and the nuclear threat. And I think we underestimated how decentralized this terrorist state was and dug in, if you follow me, literally dug in no matter what we bombed. And I think the only options are there's no middle ground here. You either bomb the you-know-what out of them, like the infrastructure, like the president had threatened, the infrastructure, the bridges, the utilities, but then you're also going to impact 90 million people in Iran. I don't even know the population.
Big country. Yeah, I think that's about right.
And
go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say your options are not really. There's not a lot of great middle ground because the Strait of Hormuz is so complicated and fortified in very, almost terrorist ways. Small boats, mines, not really the big battleships. Terrorism is a hard thing to combat, and we should have known that from Iraq. Afghanistan and Syria, but I guess we, thought this might be a little different.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, that Iran is clearly trying to, as much as they say that the strait is open, they're firing on ships that don't follow the prescribed routes that they lay out, and that really is kind of a precursor to charging fees or tolls. And it'd be really interesting to see what a full-on attempt by the U.S. to completely open up the strait would look like. Now, there are real potential military costs to that have to be weighed, but we haven't. We saw the blockade of some of the Iranian ports, but we have not seen kind of a full-scale attempt to just sort of open up the straits completely. And it's very difficult, like you said. It's essentially this kind of asymmetrical, water-based terrorism.
Well, we had a great pilot locally who was in Durham, a retired fighter pilot, say this, that, he goes, because he had done missions in the Middle East. He said it's no secret in the military world that the Islamic State of Iran knew for many years if we came at them, it would be the big bombs from up high or from Tomahawk missiles. So they started digging in deep places all around decades ago. And it's a tough thing to ferret out unless you do a massive ground invasion or a ground force. And I don't think anyone here has the stomach for that, because you put 1,500 troops in the ground, Marines or 82nd Airborne. Next thing you know, it's 5,000, then it's 10,000. And then here we go again. And it's problematic, I think, too. We have a moment here, so I'm going to say this, that, when you run for president, you get elected, I don't care who you are, you never know what the world's going to bring. You don't know the situations. And the unexpected can happen. But this president did run on a focus of making America make more stuff, secure the border, which the administration did very effectively, build up the American economy, lower prices, focus on the economy, and not get involved in foreign wars, protracted long foreign wars in the Middle East in particular. And that was something that I think a lot of people said, okay, Trump's not a war hawk, a warmonger. And here we go.
Yeah, but that is true. That's what he ran on. But he's not the first president to be kind of taken in by the lure of foreign policy and commander in chief, and just kind of the ability to act in an unconstrained fashion a much more constrained fashion than domestic
Yeah.
policy. And a lot of presidents do this. They think they can kind of, change the world order in significant ways, and they get in. And it's easy to get in, but it's often very difficult to get back out.
Yeah. All right. And then, of course, we have the midterms. All right, Dean Spiliotis, enjoy the Wednesday.
Thanks. You too, Jack.
Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse Edge. Coming up a little bit later on in this next half hour, an important update for veterans. Back in a moment.
107.7. To a new media center where the next generation of journalists are taught to do it right. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
So J-Dog, as we get back here, game would be tomorrow down in Foxborough, Boston Stadium, France, Morocco. Is that right?
Match, yes, 4 p.m.
Oh, come on. It's still a game. Tomorrow?
4 p.m. tomorrow.
What else happened yesterday of the big outcomes? Argentina?
Yes, I thought Egypt was going to get it. They had a 2-0 lead, and it wasn't enough. Argentina, in the end, able to win. And then Switzerland defeated Colombia on penalty kicks, 4-3. Makes it 0-0, but when they do penalty kicks, 4-3. So it is Switzerland and Argentina in Kansas City later this week. But France, Morocco, 4 p.m. tomorrow. That match moves on. Winner moves on to the next stage. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, Jack. It's going to be down to the Final Four after this weekend, and then off to the last two, which will be on Sunday, July 19th. So we're inching closer and closer to the World Cup final, which will be in New York Stadium, New Jersey, but New York Stadium on Sunday, July 19th.
All right. And, I guess how much, J-Dog, do you think the U.S. losing to Belgium affects the U.S. support for World Cup soccer? You think a lot of people are still into it, even if the home team's out?
There's probably a little bit of a lost interest. We see it online, like, well, back to football, other football, American football. So once the NFL begins, like, nothing else is really going to matter, whether it be politics, whether it be daily life. It's just going to be football, football, football. The NFL is the cash cow, the gift that keeps on giving for the NFL itself, and that's all people are going to be talking about. Forget WNBA, forget postseason coming in baseball. It's just going to be NFL, NFL, NFL. Unless, of course, we've reached that point, and I think we could be getting there, Jack, where maybe it's not going to be NFL, NFL, NFL all the time.
I'm not sure. Well, you know what? I don't know, J-Dog. I don't know. I'm like a lot of people where the mind narrows sometimes as you get older. Mine opens. I don't know, J-Dog. That's the question.
Added
You
games, and more of the international games, which people do not want.
I mean, they've been trying to do that in the NFL more, like Germany. Go to the country.
They're going to be doing that for 13 weeks in a row. There's going to be at least one international game after starting week one, because again they started off. J-Dog, it has to be more than a decade ago now. And you and I've talked in the past about this. The NFL, from a marketing point of view, did something very smart. Maybe it's almost 15, 20 years ago, J-Dog, they started this. They started marketing more towards female fans, women. Decade, maybe. Yeah.
And I think it was successful. The question is today, J-Dog, is not my generation or even yours. It's the what do they call the Gen Z? It's the
Gen Z?
a 25-year-old.
Yeah, Gen Z.
Other than fantasy football and betting or gambling on football games
Right.
or players, are they into watching the Chiefs play the Green Bay Packers in on a Thursday night? Are they into that?
So
I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yes, at the moment, again,
I don't know if they are though, J-Dog.
they
Younger
are.
people.
The problem is, and again, the NFL, they're going to have a Thanksgiving Eve game on a Wednesday. So this is where I'm having with the NFL the way it is. They want to make the NFL every day, and you can't do football every day. You really can't. The amount of injuries and everything, the toll it takes. It's not like baseball where you can have a 3-game series. The NFL's trying to get into that kind of. That's why they want to add that extra game, which means they don't care about the players' health, welfare, and safety, obviously, doing this. So, again, there's a saturation point where the NFL, that we thought it was there a few years ago, that it had peaked, but no, they had a second wind. But at the moment, that's all people are going to be talking about come late August into September, and then once NFL season begins, all bets are off.
I can't predict, J-Dog. I do think the World Cup here had a bigger connection or impact in major cities where the games were played. I think some people who weren't around any of those cities and just sort of watching whatever they see on their phones or media have sort of barely paid attention. But I certainly think in major cities where the matches were being played, I mean, you look at Gillette and Foxborough, they had, I think it was, I don't know how many matches. It's been a few weeks at least, and they have a big game tomorrow there, which I'm sure this one, France and Morocco, tomorrow afternoon will probably be sold out. I would imagine.
Yeah. Kylian Mbappe is an attraction. He's arguably the best player in the world. He's certainly the youngest best player in the world, because people still think Messi is, even though Messi's 39. Again, they think he's the overall because Argentina are the champs. He's the best player in MLS, playing for Inter Miami.
Yeah.
So, but I think Mbappe overall is the best. And we're going to see that tomorrow when they take on Morocco. Morocco, by the way, is one of the 3 countries that will be hosting the 2030 World Cup. Spain, Portugal, and Morocco are the hosts.
I do think the international flavor of the World Cup and the teams coming here was pretty cool. And I do find it interesting that before the whole thing began, a lot of stories were kind of negative about would people want to travel here and stay here and travel with their countries and teams? Would they want to come to America? Almost negative stories were being done about would they even come here? And it was sort of an indirect way of, backhanded, criticism of President Trump and America. Somehow we're a bad place. They might not want to come here. The immigration debate, would they be rounded up by ICE agents? Would they want to come to America? And then I'm watching all these fans from around the world come to America and come to these U.S. cities and say, I love it here. I don't want to go home. I love it here. Well, I'm having a great time in Boston. I'm going to have a great time in Seattle. I'm having a great time in these cities. I don't want to go home. Okay. New Jersey. I don't want to go home. Okay. We'll see where it goes.
New Jersey.
No, I mean
Find
the
me a way
games.
to get me out of here.
Oh, I know, J-Dog, but didn't you say that's where the final is?
It is. Yes,
Yeah.
New York Stadium, but of course it'll be in New Jersey.
Are they going to have the Jets and the Giants emblems on both sides of the end zone? I'm kidding. All right. I want to, I was talking with Dean Spiliotis before we go to our friends on the VA, and it's a fun question. And even Dean said that's a good question. I'm watching the orchestration sometimes of these stories, politically speaking, because I see stuff. I'm doing this for a lot of years in the media, and it is kind of funny because I did watch the whole, the political takeout of Joe and Dr. Jill Biden, the president, on that Sunday, and the political gun to the head. See, I have my own theories that you can probably call them conspiracy theories that we'll never know what really got Joe Biden out of the race. I don't think it was an altruistic move for his party. Are you kidding me? When you're president and you have that power and the first lady doesn't want to go anywhere, you don't give it up. I think they basically threatened him like, we'll pull that amendment that you're too out of it and you're not even signing stuff and you're not fit for the job. We'll turn on you if you don't go on your own, and that will be your legacy. We kicked you out. So they force him out. And I watched the orchestration and the love fest. Oh, my goodness, it was immediate 12 hours later. I mean, I remember the whole thing was like yesterday. Remember George Clooney, the actor, wonderful George? He comes out and writes that piece. Joe, I love you, but you got to go after the infamous debate with Trump. Do you remember that? Clooney turns on Joe Biden, and he was his biggest fundraiser. You got Joe, I love you, but you got to go. And then they all came around, and the love fest for Harris was underway. The fundraising machine was underway. She raised money, didn't do any interviews, and then we know what happened. She lost. They lost. Oh, my goodness. But I'm watching this Plattner story and the dynamics around it unfold. It's amazing how quickly all the Democrats, including here in New Hampshire, were condemning him after this allegation and the rape allegation and the interview in Politico and CNN of this victim, this woman he used to date. And very credible, very real. Took her a lot of courage to do that. Just comes out and wants people to know the whole truth here about this guy. So it seems damning and condemning, and they condemn and they jump ship, including Elizabeth Warren and even Bernie. Bernie loved Graham, loved him. Bernie Sanders. Took Bernie a day or two. I called Graham and talked with him about the best path forward for the state of Maine, and I really think he should step aside and leave the race. Oh, Bernie, it took a lot for Bernie to not support this fellow socialist candidate, Graham Plattner. Took a lot. So I'm watching all this, right? And I'm going, oh, my goodness. So that's all. So now Plattner, I mean, you would think there's absolutely no question at all he's got to drop out of this race, right? No question. I mean, look at it doesn't get any more scathing than this. This is a credible, real woman, accuser, victim coming forward, doing the interview, sitting there coherently and calmly telling what I believe to be the truth. And he still says, as of the last 24 hours, it's not really the truth. I'm going to re-look at my campaign and the best way to go forward. But he's not dropped out. And everyone's missing this point. He's got to officially drop out. Willingly, can't be forced out like the Biden thing. Got to willingly, even if the big money machine and the Democrat Party says we're not going to raise you money, he's going to say, you know what? I want one of you. I wonder, and I think it's not crazy. If he doesn't drop out of this thing by tomorrow, going into Friday, I don't think he's dropping out. And I don't think he cares about the general election. This is bigger. This is a cause. This is a fight for the heart and soul of the Democrat Party. I mean, look at these socialists that are running and winning the primaries. The one in New York, the 13th congressional district, who had written that former President Obama was evil and that Biden was a war criminal and that police, we need to abolish all the police. This is the person who communist socialist woman who won that Democrat primary and will become a member of Congress because it's so blue. It doesn't matter who she's running against on the Republican side in November. Those 3 New York races, 3 more socialists are going to Washington. And these other primaries where they're winning. So why wouldn't Plattner look at that and say, hey, I'm going to hang in here and fight. This cause, this is bigger. And I'm the victim here. Because people like him, I don't know how they think. Obviously, he's got a tremendous character flaw. I don't know how they think or operate, but they're never wrong. They never come out and admit, I did it. I'm sorry. I did it, by the way. I hurt that woman. I did it. No, he's not going to do that. So the same supporters that used to believe the accusers, believe the women for decades, they forget that now because they think Graham is something special about him. I've even seen some of the posts made. There's something wonderful about him, something special about him. What? Yeah, they believe it. So why would he drop out? And if he hangs in there, are they going to come around, the same Democrats who've been bailing and jumping ship? Hey, Graham, he's our nominee. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of Nation. Some commentary back with our friends in the Manchester VA next.
This is the Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right. Welcome back. And I want to bring in Kevin Forrest, and he's the director for the VA here. And Kevin has an important subject and a guest because we are talking about advanced care planning workshop for veterans and caregivers coming up. And believe it or not, just a few weeks. Good morning, Mr. Kevin.
Good morning, Jack. How are you? Hope you had a good 4th. It was certainly a good weekend around here.
I wish you same wish for you. It was wonderful and 250, and of course we enjoyed being there live ahead of the big July 4th 250. So it was great. Take it away, Kevin.
I will. Well, and again, thanks so much for that. Look, I heard a lot of listeners and just other folks coming into the medical center. They really enjoyed your time over here, so I was appreciative of that.
It's always an honor.
So, today I have Kim Wyborny with me, one of our awesome social workers here, and she is going to be speaking about our upcoming advanced care planning workshop on the 22nd of July. And this is important. It's an important part of when you think all of us should have an estate plan and our future planning. And, sometimes you pay big money to attorneys to do that for you. And you don't have to do that here as a veteran. We have Kim and her team, and the Manchester VA can take care of all of that for you. So I will turn it over to Kim, and she can give the details. So Kim, over to you.
Hello, good morning. Thanks for having me. We're excited that we're having an upcoming advanced care planning workshop. Advanced care planning is the process of thinking about, talking about, and writing down your future preferences for medical care. So it's a great opportunity for veterans and caregivers to explore what matters most to them with their health care and explore their beliefs and values around their future health care needs.
That's important. I always like to come back and ask the question, Kevin, what I'm going to ask is, how long have you been with the VA and what brought you to this line of work as a social worker?
Oh, okay. I've been with the VA about almost 2 years now. I've been a social worker for 25 plus years. What brought me here to the VA is, similar to what most people are attracted to, I think, about coming to the VA, to just basically the mission of serving those who have served. And that mission aligns very nicely with the social work profession. So great opportunity to be here.
And talk about the workshop, because, Kevin brought up the estate and planning, and Friday we have great sponsors and guests, Kevin, from the AARP are talking about a similar subject on sort of planning for things like housing and not just retirement, but with veterans and caregivers, there's a lot of planning that, probably should happen and stuff people should think about. Let me just go to our guest here and your expert. What are some of the things that are going to be brought up in this workshop?
Yeah. So advanced care planning is part of that larger package, so to speak, but it is a legal form. It records your preferences for future medical care. So it goes into effect if you become seriously ill or injured and you cannot speak for yourself. And it identifies healthcare surrogates to carry out your wishes for these preferred medical treatments in the future if you were unable to do so.
Okay. And what are some common things? Maybe you could elaborate a little more and bring it home to listeners and caregivers. What are some of the common things that you hear? Let's focus on the caregiver, not the veteran, for a moment.
Sure. A lot of times people are grateful that they have, that their loved one has these documents in place ahead of time. It takes the burden off of the family and caregivers to know what the wishes were in advance for their loved one, because it can become, in those moments, really difficult to have to make those decisions without having a guide put in place ahead of time by the individual. So it is a gift to the families and caregivers to complete these documents in advance. And it's really important to have these conversations in advance so that those around you, your families and caregivers, know what your wishes are before you need it. So it's great to be it's a very proactive document to have in place. Interesting.
And that's coming up, what is it, July 22nd, is it?
Yes, it's July 22nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Located here in our training and education room, which is on the first floor right past our eligibility offices.
And Kevin, are you do you agree with me or not that I find that one of the biggest things that on my own veteran advocacy, when we talk about on my show, is I'm trying to reach the person around the veteran, because sometimes the veteran is not the person who's going to be proactive on some of that. That's not a negative. It's just a reality.
It is, and that's why we open up these workshops. We've got veterans, we've got caregivers. I would say that if a veteran has a friend, a parent, whoever they have, they're certainly welcome to come listen, and to the degree they can participate in this, that's fine. But this is important for everybody, whether you're a veteran or not. Quite frankly, and like Kim had mentioned, when an advanced care plan goes into effect, unfortunately, it's not a time when you're probably going to want to be thinking about the nuances of the care plan. It's better to think about that when,
we always wait. You always wait, and you should do it proactively. It makes life easier. So again, the conference coming up July 2nd, 22nd.
Yep, July 22nd, Jack. Veterans out there, you can go on to our website. We've got all the information out there, some of the specifics that Kim had talked about, and with points of contact. If you have any questions beforehand, please give us a call.
Thank you both. Important. All right. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, by the Pulse of Nature. Rory O'Deal.